Welcome to the Guide to Wellness podcast. I'm your host, Susannah Freeman, licensed acupuncturist. In these conversations, we blend the wisdom of traditional Chinese medicine with the innovations of modern functional medicine, offering practical insights and tools for a life of wellness. Our vision is to contribute to a healthier world by providing accessible knowledge, tools, and daily practices. If you're ready to adopt new health habits and do things differently, then listen and learn here. Greetings, everyone. I'm Susannah Freeman, your host for today's podcast. Joining us is my friend and colleague, Dr. Lori Barr. I'm so excited for this conversation and for you to learn from Lori as I've learned so much from her myself. First, let's take a moment to understand Dr. Lori's background. And then, as we listen, we'll notice that how we speak to ourselves matters. And as we practice and use these skills on a daily basis, we'll continue to improve not only our lives, but also the lives of those around us. Dr. Lori Barr, you helped grow Austendale Children's Medical Center from an idea formed in the minds of doctors in the basement of a local general hospital into the first LEED Platinum hospital in the world. Today, you serve over 18,000 patients and specialists a year and chair the medical imaging department at the Studer Family Children's Hospital at Ascension Sacred Heart in Pensacola, Florida. On top of a busy practice, you also mentor professionals and individuals to improve the quality of their lives with a higher level of communication skills. Your bestseller, the book Think and Grow Well, assists readers of all walks of life in strengthening their mind, body, spirit, and awareness before a health crisis occurs. Lori, it's such a pleasure to have you on this show. Let's get started. Where did we meet and why did we choose to do a podcast together? And I want to give you all some takeaways with how to use language to serve your highest purpose, to improve the quality of your life, and to move into action in the ways that you have been wanting and needing to in your life. So, and to get the word need to out of your language and into I will and I am, and this is what I do. And this is how we become the people we want to be in our lives. So Lori and I met, how long has it been, Lori? A year or so? I feel like I've known you for a lot longer. We have a mutual mastermind that we go to. It's called the Circle of Influence, and it's run and facilitated by our favorite trainer in NeuroLinguistic Programming. His name is Michael Bernoff. So thank you, Michael, for everything that you have taught us over the years. It's fantastic. And the community that has been created through Michael's mastermind has been just as influential to me in my life as the actual training. So when we meet in this mastermind several times a year, and we continue to support each other in this community that goes above and beyond our daily lives and moves us all into happier, healthier lives. And I'm eternally grateful for that and for you, Lori. So can you tell us a little bit about how and why you became a doctor and why that's important to you?
So let's go back in time and just pretend we're children. You know, when I was very little, I just was drawn to veterinary care. I loved animals. I took care of animals. I spent all my summers on our farm in North Alabama. And I'm sure that you and your listeners can think back to a time when they were young, when they too actually spent time like observing animals growing and touching animals and helping the sick. Like maybe you found a bird in your yard and you tried to nurse that bird into being a free bird, and maybe it died and maybe it lived. You know, that's how we learn about life and growth. And so I was really interested in veterinary medicine. And then when I got to be a high school student, I took the the Veterinary Explorers program that was offered by the Boy Scouts of America at that time to young people who were in high school who were looking at careers. And it was a year-long program. You'd spend an evening with the veterinarian at their office, and they would tell you what they did, and you got to do things with the vet. And it was great. Month after month, I was going to the vet's office once a month. We'd learn about something. And the very last month in May, it was euthanasia night. About 15 minutes into that, I called my father. I said, Daddy, you need to come pick me up. And he did. And when I got in the car, he said, what happened, honey? And I said, well, it was euthanasia night. And I know that if I become a vet, we're going to wind up with a lot of animals that probably need to be put down on our farm. And I probably won't be making any money. So we need to look at something else for my career. So the very next year, I was a medical explorer. And what I found that year with exploring medicine is that I didn't have to face those issues with euthanasia. Very different time in medicine, because now actually, some doctors support euthanasia for adults who are the weakest, or not even adults, for humans who are the weakest in our society in their perception. But at the time I joined medicine,
yeah, I hear you there.
I swore an oath to do no harm, and I still hold by the oath I swore. So that's kind of how I got into medicine. And then the reason I got into language and communication has to do with picking radiology as a career. Radiologists, it's essential that we communicate in a very clear manner, because the referring physician has to get a clear picture of what we saw on the imaging study in our report. So essentially, you're painting a picture over and over again that both the patient and the referring physician or practitioner can see in their mind. It's a story. It's the story of that image that I've interpreted in the body of the report and in the impression. So I've dedicated myself to becoming a more clear and concise communicator for years.
Wow, Lori, that really helps me understand you quite a bit better. And two things that really stand out to me. One is euthanasia night. I can completely understand there is a time and a purpose that we all come to this life for a period of time. But to have that be such a huge part of your practice, I can see why you might have moved into radiology. And what I know about you, Lori, is that you are committed to the improvement in the quality of lives of yourself, your family, your patients, and those around you in the world. So that is, as I see you, your highest value. I'm curious to hear if you have anything else there, but I can see how and why you made those choices, and I'm glad you did. The other thing that, as a clinician myself, I just want to extend some thanks and gratitude to you. In my work, I depend on the accurate and clear communication from the doctors who are reading the images and I read the blood chemistry, but our medical supervisor also helps me with that. And we're always in collaboration with our patients' physicians about their lab tests. And it's critical. So I do my own diagnosis based on the principles of traditional Chinese medicine, and that is primarily a physical exam. But I still rely on those labs, and they're integral to my practice in helping also my value of improving the quality of lives of my patients and those around me.
And it's complementary because, the lab values are an objective measure of the patient's condition at a point in time, just like an imaging study, an X-ray or an ultrasound or an MRI or a CT. All of those are an objective measure of that patient in a point in time. However, the way we use that information, that's subjective. So my interpretation of imaging, or the way that you're using that lab work in context in the care of that patient. And that's where the art of care comes in. The art of improving life, the art of wellness. And that's, what I'm all about is let's be prepared before the disaster strikes. And let's really make this an art and practice where we're all getting better.
Beautiful. Which leads us to our topic today, how to improve communication and the quality of our lives using this concept of community. So I'm going to rely on your skills and expertise. You're going to rely on mine, and together we're going to work towards our patients' improved health. And by the way, you can use these concepts with your family, with your children, with yourself, with anybody. This is not just a doctor-patient conversation.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
I mean, when you were thinking back to, when you were younger, and when I asked if you had an experience where you maybe helped an animal out, when they were in need, what was different about then and now? You know, when you were little and you found that, what came to mind when you found an animal in need?
An animal in need. All right, I'm going to tell you the funniest one that comes to mind. I had this sweet little gray tabby cat named Harold. And Harold was my boy. Harold, I had some best friends in my childhood, but Harold topped the list. And we had this big, tall cedar tree in the backyard that my brother and my friends and I used to have climbing races literally up this 100-foot tall cedar tree. We didn't have manicured lawns where I lived. We lived on a hillside, and the things to do was not ball sports, it was tree climbing. So we would climb these trees, and we had the first ever zip line, maybe in the world, that my dad built. Well, Harold decided he wanted to join us, and he climbed up the tree, and then he got stuck. And I heard Harold up there mewing like for hours. I'm like, Harold, come on, we're just like 50 feet up. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Here's a cat who's supposed to know how to climb a tree. And this cat is scared for his life. And I am a human that doesn't know how to climb trees very well. I'm like, okay. And I just mustered all my courage, because the last thing I was going to do was to leave my dear friend Harold up in that tree. So I don't know how I got the strength. I just did it. I went to the fridge, and luckily we had some salami in the fridge. And I put the salami in my pocket, and I climbed my way up the tree about 50 feet up. And I put the salami in his front of him, and he leaned towards me until I could get him in my arms. And luckily Harold knew what to do next, which was to relax. And this is key. This is like early neurolinguistic programming that I was learning here, and that he knew how to just allow me to help him. And so together, I was definitely afraid, but I wasn't going to allow myself to feel it. I got super focused. I couldn't tell you how I did it, but I climbed down that tall tree, down around, across the branches, down with a cat in my arms. So I must have just used one hand. I don't know. I don't know how I did it. Anyway,
So
we
that's a
made it
great
down safely.
example of exactly what I was hoping you would do.
Okay.
And that is demonstrate that when you were a
Mm-hmm.
child and there was
Mm-hmm.
an obstacle that you couldn't possibly overcome,
Mm-hmm.
you thought, you had novel ideas, and you figured out a way to do it.
I
How
became
many
a
times,
superhero.
though, as
I was
adults,
strong. I was focused, right?
yeah, and how many times as adults do we just not even take time to think because we've already got patterns in our system where maybe we haven't succeeded at something like that and we just don't even think? So, to me, the first point of improving communication is taking the time as an adult to have an original thought. I mean, there are people
Mm-hmm.
who go through their whole adult lives and don't have any original thoughts. They just go through the motions of their day.
Mm-hmm.
So, taking the
Can I
time to think about that is important.
can I stop you for a second? Are you
Mhm.
suggesting, because I remember that moment of fear. So Harold's up in the tree and he's mewing. Can't you just hear that? It's like a distressed cat, right? It's like,
Mhm.
oh. So, and I'm down on the ground, and I'm thinking, if I make a mistake, I'm quite frankly dying. So, did I have a moment of a clean slate? At that point, I stopped thinking and I started doing. I kept myself safe, but I wasn't using an old pattern. Was that sort of a clear slate, building a new pattern in that moment? And that now what you're suggesting is I can go back to that pattern that I established, that was, I'm not going to think right now, I'm going to do, and I'm going to trust my focus and my skills and my strength to do what I need to be doing in the moment. Can you help me with that? Because I stopped thinking then.
Well, yes, you stopped thinking once you decided on an idea that you thought was plausible, you took
Mm-hmm.
action.
Yes.
It's
Okay.
not that you stopped thinking. You had to think with every step because this was something you hadn't done before. So I would
Yes.
differ with your interpretation
Okay.
of that.
Perfect.
You
Okay.
stopped deciding on what you were going to do because you had already made a decision.
Perfect. That's a
So, and
really
your
important
thinking
clarification.
supported your decision past that point. And yes, we can all go back to that. And, in the mastermind that Susannah and I are in, that's exactly what we do. We break down key moments where our thoughts and our feelings and our words and our actions were incredibly effective. And we reinforce those so we can use them in our lives as adults now and help other people.
So what you're saying is that it would be helpful for all of us to have some key time in our childhood that we made a decision and we acted and it worked well. And we want to pattern that so that we build our confidence and our strength and our tools in the future.
Right, because what's usually in our way of taking action when fear strikes, our subconscious mind wants to protect us, right? So it's immediately going to say, whoa, the last time you climbed that tree, you fell. So you don't really want to go that route. Just call the fire department.
I do have a few stories like that. So so that's another topic, right? Is what to do with when it doesn't work and how to block out or smooth over or drop into a trap door those memories so they no longer drive us, correct?
Right. And that kind of gets to the, we were talking about words that kind of stop you and ideas that stop you. And certainly the three big emotions, worry, fear, and doubt, stop everybody dead in their tracks. So it's really about in that moment identifying, is this fear about now, or is this fear about something that happened in the past? And if you can isolate that, that will get you going. If you can identify, oh, well, I'm afraid because the last time I, climbed a tree, I fell. So let me take that out of the equation and let's think of what other ideas I can have now that I've consciously taken that emotion away from this experience. So it's all about consciously interacting with the words you're telling yourself in the moment where that emotion is overwhelming.
So let's sum up for a moment. So you're at a choice point with needing to take action or some problem, some issue that's come up. And you're an adult. So you have many, many years of life experience behind you. The first thing to do is to pause and to notice, become aware of how you feel, what's happening in the moment. Right?
How you feel and what you're telling yourself or what someone else is telling you. I mean, it could actually be what someone else is telling you.
So recognizing internally your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations in the body sensations, the thoughts that you're having, tracking those, and then identifying, is this something from the past, this worry, this doubt, this fear, or is this current? So one of the things that I know that can work really well is, in the past, I may have felt fear that I would fall out of a tree. From now on, or now, I will fill in the blank. Or replace that with the action, correct?
Or now I am getting better and better at climbing trees. It's active in the present tense, so it lets me move forward in this moment. And it gives me the idea that in the future, I will continue to improve. So those are both ways that it could be, the self-talk could be handled. So let's sum up even further. What we're really doing here is 3 steps, 3 R's. We're recognizing a thought or idea that is not serving us. We're removing it from actively getting into our subconscious mind and doing something we don't want to do, put us into an automatic routine we don't want. And we're replacing it with new words or ideas that are going to serve us better in this moment. And then the final step is reinforcement. If you want that new idea to become a habit, you would go ahead and add the 4th R, reinforcement. Recognize,
let's do 4
remove,
R's.
Replace, and reinforce.
Beautiful. Is there anything else you want us to be aware of along the way as we do these 4 R's? What are some of the other little tips and tricks and tools that you find super helpful in your daily life as you're moving yourself forward. We always use the put your oxygen mask on first, take care of yourself first so that you can serve others better. Lori, what else do you do on a daily basis when you come into worry, doubt, or fear?
Well, the first thing is recognizing how that feels in my own body. One thing with being a healthcare practitioner is the more years you're in that position of leadership, that position of lending your patients your own self-confidence, it can mute your ability to recognize negative emotions or positive emotions in yourself. That's why you'll hear some professionals who are on the burnout spectrum saying, oh, I just feel numb. I don't feel anything anymore. So making sure I recognize the clues in my own body that I am having an emotional response is important. And then understanding ways to deal with that emotion if it's keeping me from moving forward. And that usually has to do with, okay, take a deep breath. You know, what is the most important first step I can take right now, which gets back to your cat story, right? I need the salami. You know, it's not about climbing the tree yet. I need something to lure the cat to me. I need the salami. So, you know, I would be looking for that next step. What is the next step that's going to get me closer to the goal, which may be saving a patient's life. It may be getting the best study on the patient. You know, it could be a variety of things in the healthcare setting.
Can I stop you for a moment? I think you also mentioned something really important that I want to make sure everybody hears, which is you recognized and then you stopped and you took a deep breath. Even before I went to go get the salami in the fridge, I stopped. Even I don't remember how old I was, maybe 10. I have an awareness and a memory of just stopping. I can feel myself standing there, hearing the cat, listening, feeling my feet on the ground, and just taking a breath, noticing that my body felt stressed and anxious. And I also had this excitement that, like, okay, I need to do something. And I captured all of that in a moment. And I took a breath, and then I went to go get the salami. So it's super important that we do that pause. And it's hard to do when you're patterned into stress. So the most important thing I think we can do is to build that pause in. A little plug to our podcast that we do these once a month. Last month is called Inhale, Exhale, Thrive. And it's all about breathing and how to regulate the vagus nerve and how to use breath to promote a positive response and to move your stress into the background. So this is something that I know that, Lori, you do, and it keeps you from being burned out. And it's something I do as well. And it's something we teach all of our patients to do. So please listen to that podcast and learn how to breathe. So
and
that was my little
in
plug.
case your listeners did not notice what you said too, when you were recounting your story and that split second where you made the decision, you mentioned that you had fear and excitement. And typically when we're training ourselves to choose a different emotion, like after I've decided that this emotion of fear is not serving me in this moment, the next question is, what emotion would serve me? And in your case, excitement that you could make a difference, that you could help your cat get down, and you were the only one who could do it.
Right.
You know, so you could choose fear or you could choose excitement. You chose excitement, you took action, and you made it happen. So that's the same choice we have, is to pick a different emotion. So it's nice to have some of those other emotions that are choices handy in your mind so that you have a choice.
Cool. And that leads me to think through a couple of the other tools that we often talk about in our mastermind, which is part of what helped me in that moment with our cat Harold, this story, is that I had some skills that I had consistently built over time, so that when I decided, so we use the words decide and do, I made the decision I was going to help the cat who was in need. And so I paused, assessed the situation, I caught my breath, chose excitement over fear. I also then put into action my plan, but I used the skills that I had been developing every day after school with my brother and my neighborhood friends of climbing that tree. And so I knew that I was strong, and I knew the ways up the tree and down the tree, and I knew it all by heart. If I had not built those skills of tree climbing, I would not have been able to do what I did. So how do we, not only do we pause and make a decision and choose the appropriate emotion, but we're also then going to build on our skills. And partly how you become such an important leader in your field is because how many images have you read in your life? How many images do you read in a year? You're building these skills every single day, and you're very consistent. And you're consistent in choosing your emotions effectively for the moment. So tell us a little bit about how you build consistency and why that's important.
Well, consistency is built with conscious choice to repeat an action enough to have it build in a muscle memory. The problem we have as adults many times is that we don't realize how many repetition it takes to build a new habit. And there was a study done on stroke patients, which often if you have a stroke, you lose function of a part of your body. Maybe it's your speech center, maybe it's function of an arm. And in this study, patients had lost the use of their dominant hand. They were taught to brush their teeth with the other hand. And the question was, how long before brushing their teeth with the other hand became automatic? How many repetitions would you think that would take?
That's a good question. I have no idea.
Just guess. Let's play. Let's make
How
this
many
fun.
repetitions? 10,000.
10,000 repetitions appeared in Malcolm Gladwell's book about how to become an expert, that it took 10,000 repetitions.
Oh, I guessed right.
So that's to become an expert. We're not asking people to become an expert. We're asking them to do automatic, to not have to think about, like, do you think about driving when you're trying to get somewhere anymore? No, but when you first learned to drive, you had to think about it. So it only takes 1,200 repetitions to build a new physical habit, like walking or talking or, brushing your teeth, according to this study. However, most of us as adults, when we want to implement a new habit, we quit after about 10 times. So we don't really give ourselves a chance to master something enough for it to be automatic. You had clearly climbed that tree more than 1,200 times. And so I like to remind people when I'm trying to help them form a new habit is, when you're a toddler, before you become a toddler, when you're crawling and you're thinking about walking, you don't just try it once, fall down and say, oh, that walking stuff, that's for other babies. I'm fine just crawling. You just got up and did it again. That was the normal thing to do. But as adults, we'll try one thing once or twice, something new once or twice, and then we'll quit saying, oh, well, that works for them. But that's because, Susannah and Lori are in a mastermind together. They practice this. That'll only work for them. When in reality, if we just give ourselves 1,200 chances to try it, we might find that it's just as much fun for us.
So, Lori, I'm going to continue on this theme and ask you for another tool. There's a part of me, even though I know that I've done all kinds of things 1,200 times, that number sounds a little bit daunting. How do you build the patience and the practice and the mundane? Like, okay, I'm on 847 now. How do you build 1,200 reps of something and not lose your motivation?
Well, motivation is the key. So the question is, what do you need to motivate you enough to make that change? So it could be something you're really passionate about. Saving Harold's life was so passionate for you. You would have done 1,200 repetitions right there to save his life, because that was a core value for you that you absolutely had to achieve. So, the easiest thing is for somebody to identify something they're so passionate about that it makes that easy. The other thing that's awfully fun is to gamify it. Let's make it fun. How can I make this so much fun? What am I going to reward myself with for doing repetition today that makes it more fun for me?
Cool. And then in your book, Think and Grow Well, which we'll talk about soon, I know that you talked about there are two other ways that you could develop a new habit in a hurry. One is a peak emotional experience that could be either positive or it could be traumatic, right? And what was the second one? So there's repetition and motivation and just building that, using your will to build that using will and motivation and the gang theory to build those reps up to 1200 and more. There's doing it all at once with a trauma or a life-threatening experience, right? And the third?
I'm blanking. I'd have to look in the
Okay,
book here.
me too. I know I had it this morning. I love your book. It is so good. Here it is, Think and Grow Well. It's an amazing book, and we're going to give all of you a chance to own it yourselves and work through it with me, and to a chance to work with Lori a little bit more. The purpose here is to use these tools to build quality of life, how to make your life better in the ways that you choose, how to help improve the lives of those you love and care about, and your coworkers and whoever your clients, patients, family members, kids, grown-ups, whoever's in your world, how to improve our lives and those around us. And that includes animals, by the way, because we all love our animals.
Okay,
And
to be
so,
honest with you, I'm not going to find this easily. So,
oh, that's okay. I'm blanking on it too. It's quite all right. I'm remembering the story of, I believe his name is Stan in your book. And he was a little kid who
okay,
his mom asked him if he needed to do his homework, and he
okay,
said no, right?
okay, I got it.
And do you want to tell that story? Because it's a great story.
Yep. So the other way you can build a habit quickly is to like recognize when you're lying to yourself. So let's talk about the power of the subconscious mind, and the fact that the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between truth and fiction. So in my book, Think and Grow Well, there is a story about Stan, and all of the stories in my book are there to help people relate to situations where they can take an action that will prepare them before a health disaster strikes, a challenge to their vitality strikes. And all of the stories are true, but the names have been changed. So Stan absolutely was in the back seat of the car and wanted to go do something. And, mom was like, well, did you do your homework? And Stan said, yes. And in reality, Stan had not done his homework. And, there were consequences for not doing the homework and for lying. Yet you have to realize that the subconscious mind itself doesn't really know the difference between truth or fiction. And there's a difference between lying, and it's not like Stan wanted to lie.
Right.
It was just an unconscious word that came out because that was the easiest way to avoid the conflict in the moment. So that was an unconscious choice he made. And that happens to us. We can choose to consciously practice in our mind, and you can get those 1200 repetitions just by thinking that you're doing it. I mean, there are plenty of stories of people who have improved their health. I remember my mentor, Bob Proctor, telling a story of a patient who was on mechanical respiration and who imagined himself breathing on his own to the point that he got himself off the ventilator. Strictly by imagining that he was already doing it on his own. Now, that's one example of powerfully exercising in your mind physical activity that changes your ability to improve. And this has been proven throughout sports consistently. You can look at tennis players. It's been done in a lot of sports. Who gets the most out of it? Just the people who think about practicing or the people who actually practice. And the thinking about practicing is actually more efficient.
Thinking about practicing is more efficient than practicing?
Thinking that you're like imagining that you're practicing is actually more efficient than practicing. Now, you have to build muscle strength. Like you could not have thought 1200 times that you climbed the tree and been able to do it. You might have been able to do it. It would have cost you more on the back end, because your muscles weren't prepared. So that combination of physical training and the imagining that you've already done it or that you're doing it is more effective than just doing physical practice.
Yeah, we must do both. But we can practice getting ourselves there in our mind if we're needing to build our motivation. And that's what's going to get you to the 1200 reps.
It'll build your motivation, but it also actually, I mean, your mind affects your body. So I mean, it absolutely makes your muscles think they've already done it. And what we're trying to build here is muscle memory.
Yes. So we're doing both. I love it. I love it. That's so cool. And by doing both, you'll be more effective.
You'll be more effective faster.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to hear a little bit more about this book of yours and how we can get our hot little hands on it and how we can improve our lives with some of these tools. Tell us a little bit about the book. We've got some ideas on how to get that to people. You want to just jump in and tell us a little bit about the book and why you wrote it and how you would like people to be using it? And by the way, just know that I use it here in my clinic and I love it.
Thank you. So I wrote Think and Grow Well. I've written several books, some within my field of radiology and many for everybody else in the world.
Yes.
And what I find is if you want to change behaviors, you have to approach it on both ends. So if I want to help people feel better the most, I can do one thing, which is write a book to everybody out there, which Think and Grow Well is. But I can also do another thing, which is to mentor doctors so that they actually take care of themselves better. You know, and they may not read the Think and Grow Well book, but they might listen to me in educational forums where I specifically teach to them so that they're supporting you as you try to improve your vitality rather than telling you just the standard stuff they learn in medical school, which doesn't always serve you as their individual patient. So, you know, the idea of writing the Think and Grow Well book was to take simple scenarios where people get stuck in their health journey, where a crisis, like, you know, if you see an x-ray with a lung cancer on it, you've gotten a mental tattoo. You're stuck. Your life has just changed and you're so overcome with emotion, you don't even hear the next words the doctor tells you, right? So how can you strengthen your mind, body, spirit, and awareness? So if you do have to face any health challenge, you're more prepared. You take that in stride and you say, wow, there's something on that x-ray. It might not be my favorite thing, but you know what? I love myself so much. I am going to support my body through this rather than just, oh my gosh, I've got a lung cancer. I am lung cancer, which is, you know, one way we use words to stick ourselves, right? To get ourselves stuck in a health crisis is we say, oh, I'm a diabetic. Well, no, that's not true. I have a challenge with my blood sugar. I'm Lori Barr, you know.
Excellent. Good. Lori, I'd like to add a little something that I just noticed as I was listening to you. So I want to get back to your book in a moment, but here's a real world example of this whole conversation that I just did. So I have been practicing breathing for, well, obviously I've been breathing my whole 61 years. However, I've been practicing meditation and breathing for 40 years and breathing very specifically for, 20 years. And in the last year, my colleague Jack Schwem and I have been practicing breathing and teaching it to our clinics more often. And so, as you just said, you painted a picture in all of our minds of a tumor on our lungs and the mental tattoo that happens. And as I was listening to you, I felt that hit into my body, and that I had this moment of fear or dread or something. And I just, without even thinking about it, I exhaled long. I didn't stop. I did while I was listening, I didn't break my concentration, but this awareness came in all of a sudden in my physical sensation. And then immediately following that was a long, slow exhale. And now I can say that I continued to listen, but I felt lighter in my body. So this is an example of how I have been anchoring that exhale into my body long enough that it happens automatically.
And what you're doing with it is you're releasing an idea or a picture, you're saying to yourself in physical form, you're saying, that's not me. That is simply
Right.
something I'm watching, which is a
Yes.
very important thing to either tell yourself, I reject that thought, or to
Yes.
let it go through a physical
Nice.
motion, which for you is the exhale.
Right. Beautiful. Oh, this is so exciting. This tool is so great. All right. So I want everybody to get a hold of your book and to be able to learn from you and learn and grow in ways that I continue to learn and grow with you in our mastermind. So, um, how do people reach you? And is there anything you would like to share with us so people can follow up with you directly?
So the book Think and Grow Well is available on Amazon. And
Mhm.
normally I would tell you to go to thinkandgrowwell.com.
Uh-huh.
I've been cyber hacked, so that is not a
What?
possibility right now. So do not go to thinkandgrowwell.com. I don't know what will happen to you if you go there, so please do
Okay,
not
so
do that.
and everybody reject that thought that that will
Right,
happen to
reject
them
that
and
thought.
exhale.
If someone would like to get in touch with me, you can go to Lori at thedoctorsmentor.com and email me, or you can go to thedoctorsmentor.com and you can join my community of people who are improving their lives. Mainly the community is focused on professionals from all walks of life, not just the health, not just the healing arts, but people who are wanting to be in a community that really focuses on communication in ways like this and in learning tools that take them toward where they want to be in their lives, continuing to grow and not die, because those are the only two choices. You're either growing, and if you're not growing, you're dying. So I choose growth every day, and I know you do
Nice.
too.
Yes, I do. Excellent. I love it. All right. So there are lots of different ways that we can access your tools and your community. I love it. This will all be on the show notes. So please go there and check out those if you didn't get that in the audio. And also, we'd like to offer our listeners the Catalyst prescription, right? And that will also be in the show notes. Anything else you want to say about that?
So the Catalyst prescription is just a way to actually incorporate many of these things that you and I have been talking about today, in
Excellent.
a way to move yourself forward and motivate yourself through any new idea that you want to implement. And again, that if you go to thedoctorsmentor.com, you can click the link and it will opt you in to the Doctors Mentor Coterie, which is my community. And in that community, in the resources, you have access to the Catalyst prescription, which you can use for any idea that you want to implement or any new habit you want to form.
Awesome. I'm so excited. Can't wait to see it. And we don't need to be doctors to do this, right?
Don't need to be doctors.
Beautiful.
I
Awesome.
I encourage people to consider themselves a professional of something, and that's the community we're growing. Growing is
Right.
professionals who are
Yeah.
interested in improving themselves and growing.
Mm. And like I like to say to my patients is you are an expert in your body. And I'm interested in hearing your experience and your insight because you have information that I do not. I'm the expert in functional medicine and Chinese medicine and acupuncture and herbal medicine, but that, like you were saying earlier with radiology, that only takes us so far. And at some point, we have to integrate the personal individual experience with the theories and the objective data. So once again, we're back to that integration between the doctor, the functional medicine provider, the acupuncturist, the herbalist, the physician, and the individual. So we're always talking about community and integration. So anything else, Lori? I'm gonna wind things
The one
down
thing I
here.
would like your listeners to be left with is the
Mm-hmm.
idea that, they're really responsible for their own health
Mm-hmm.
and vitality.
Good.
I mean, no doctor or any other kind of healthcare provider is going to help you feel better if you choose not to feel better yourself.
You're not
So
gonna fix me?
I know in America, we would love a quick fix, the magic bullet, the special pill that would change everything. And our media supports that.
Yeah,
In
right.
reality, what you really want is to take full control of your whole being and use that the way you were put on earth here to be effective, and that's loving other people, right? I mean, that's what we're here for, is to be vessels of love.
And yourself.
And that
And to love
includes loving
yourself.
yourself. Yes, you have to, you
Yes.
can't love others until you love yourself. And if you're not using your body, your mind, your spirit, or your awareness in a way that is supporting that love for yourself, then you're going to feel alone and lonely, because it's harder to connect with others. So if you're looking for community, if you're looking for an answer to loneliness, and if you're looking to feel better, look in the mirror first and use some of these tools that Susannah is promoting on this podcast and in their clinic, in your clinic, to build those skills within yourself. And that's what this book is here to support. Think and Grow Well supports that.
Nice. I'd love to add one more little thing that we actually learned in one of our most recent mastermind sessions with Michael Bernoff, was to look at yourself in the mirror. To do this with others, but to first do it with yourself, and to look at yourself in the mirror. And if you don't have a mirror right there, you probably have your phone, and you can put it on camera and then switch it to selfie, and to say, I want the best for you. And to just look in your eyes and hear yourself saying that. Say it out loud, say it internally. I want the best for you. And that gratitude that gets built when we do this, and if you're not able to do that for yourself, do it for your cat, your dog, your mailman, your, like, whoever, wherever you can feel it.
For 1,200 of your closest friends, Anna. Let's do 1,200 repetitions of this. I want the best for you.
Oh, I love it. And then I know we're getting a little bit long in time here, but there's one more thing. This comes from Rick Hansen. I believe he's a psychologist. He wrote the book Hardwiring Happiness, and he went around the world and interviewed monks and people who meditate and psychoneuroimmunologists, and he developed this concept of 6 times a day. Here's how you're going to get to your 1,200. 6 times a day for 30 seconds. I want you to remember a state of well-being and stay in an awareness of a state of well-being. So you don't have to stop what you're doing. You just need to catch that state of well-being. You share a laugh with somebody. I saw the most beautiful sunrise this morning. It was so gorgeous. And I just stopped and felt the pink in the air for 30 seconds. I didn't really even know I was doing it. I just did it. And if you do that 6 times a day, that will absolutely change your brain. So Rick Hansen, that's how you're going to get to 1,200, folks. And I think we're good for now. I want you all to read Think and Grow Well, and to get on to Lori's The Doctor's Mentor website, and it's all going to be in the show notes. And if you are a active audience member and listener here at the clinic, and you're a patient of ours, you can, or would like to be, we are offering for the first 10 or so people who contact us for a functional nutrition consultation, a free copy of Lori's action guide that goes right through the Think and Grow Well curriculum. And we would love to put a copy of that in your hands and to be able to walk you through it. This is a book that we use with our patients to help facilitate their healing. And because, as we know, healing isn't just your labs, it's not just the pills you take, it's what you do in your life, and it's how you think about what you do in your life. So please do check the show notes for more details. Mention this podcast. If you give us a call, you can always reach us at greatturninghealing.com. Our phone number here at the clinic is 406-599-0088. I look forward, Lori, to having you back on our podcast. We have so much else we need to talk about. There's some blood sugar conversations coming down the way for us. There's more conversations about how to improve the quality of our lives with our language and how we think and how we talk to ourselves. Anything to add here? Any last minute, anything?
just total gratitude for this
No.
opportunity to visit Montana virtually. I've been there in real life backpacking when my son was
Yes,
in
you
the Girl
have.
Scouts, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's an
Yep.
incredible place, and it's nice to be back. Thank you.
Yes. It's always lovely to have you here, Lori. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.